Now available in paperback and Kindle. Vampires stalk the darkness of the Eternal Night. Get your copy of Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com. Coming to paperback and e-readers, the Steam Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of the Steam Season of the Witch Girl at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Last week, Sinners was the #1 movie at the box office. However, Hollywood doesn't really want to celebrate the success of Sinners because it was a movie directed by a black man, and it's looking to me like there's a lot of anti-black racism being directed towards this film by the business arm of white supremacy in Hollywood. Now, Sinners opened with a strong $61 million opening in its opening weekend. However, Variety posted a tweet on social media that looked to try to downplay the success of Ryan Coogler's Sinners at the box office. And in that tweet, it said that Sinners had amassed a $61 million opening in its global debut. It's a great result for an original R-rated film, yet the Warner Brothers release has a $90 million price tag before global marketing expenses, so profitability remains a ways away as related to the film. Now, this whole post by Variety, the leading magazine in the entertainment industry, led some ire from many in Hollywood, including Ben Stiller. And Ben Stiller retorted with a tweet saying, "In what universe does a $60 million opening for an original studio movie warrant this headline?" Now, I have to ask that same critical question because as someone who has studied the entertainment industry for over 25 years, I mean, a $60 million opening internationally with 40 coming from the United States and 20 coming from abroad, that's a strong opening for a film with a $90 million budget. And if this film has no real significant drop-off, this film is on the road to profitability sooner rather than later, and is one of those films that would be a hit that Hollywood desperately needs as related to its struggles with the box office for the last 2 years as we've come out of the pandemic. In the last 2 years, we've had some of the worst box office for Hollywood. However, even though Hollywood is struggling, it still looks to be looking to participate in its own anti-black racism. Even though business has been struggling, they don't want us to celebrate the success of Sinners. And the reason why these devils don't want to celebrate the success of Sinners is mainly because they don't really want a film by a black director to be seen as a hit. 2, they don't want this film to continue making progress as related to the genre of black fantasy, black science fiction, and black horror. Now, when it comes to this film, what's really got Hollywood upset is that you have a film made by a black director, Ryan Coogler, that has gone on to be one of the biggest openings of the year. And with this film being made by a black director, they're upset that he's basically looked to, again, beat Hollywood at its own game by not only making a film that's a hit, but also making a business deal where he will be making money and building wealth as related to his own property. And what really has them upset is that a film made by a black director is doing better than many of the films that are made in Hollywood today. That's what's got many of the white executives in Hollywood peeved that Ryan Coogler has gone out here and made a hit, because they wouldn't be looking to downplay him if he was a white guy. Now, in the past, like Ben Stiller has presented, Quentin Tarantino made a similar film. I believe it was called Once Upon a Time in America or something like that. He made this film, and it was made with the same budget, and opened at the same number. But Hollywood called that movie a hit, but they don't call Sinners a hit, and that's where we see the anti-black racism going on in Hollywood as related to the way it sees films in black and white. The black film made by the black director that is made for the same budget as a white film goes on to make a strong opening weekend, but it's not seen as strong. No, what happens here is that people want to downplay that film. But in the case of Quentin Tarantino, a white man, he can go out here and make a film, and again, the film is made for the same budget, and as it's made for the same budget, it's seen as a hit, as opening as at that same box office number, and that really shows us the racism that's going on behind the scenes at Hollywood. They really don't want you to see a black director having this type of success at the box office that Ryan Coogler has had. Now, Ryan Coogler has had a series of hits at the box office, and his most prominent hit is the movie Black Panther. And I believe that the main reason why Hollywood is upset is because Ryan Coogler has had great success with Black Panther being that #1 movie of 2018, being the top movie at the box office, and also showing that he was part of a growing trend that Hollywood has been trying to quelch. Hollywood has been trying to go out here and try to sabotage the entire growing black fantasy genre. The black fantasy genre that's been growing for the last over, I believe to say, 7 to 10 years. And no matter what they try, they can't seem to squash the black fantasy genre. And that's why they wanted to go out here and minimize and downplay the movie Sinners. The reason why they wanted to minimize this movie was because this was a vampire movie and a horror movie. And this vampire and horror movie, like Black Panther, they were expecting to fail. I mean, when they made Black Panther, they expected that film to fail, and so they could go out here and passively say, we made a black superhero movie, and it flopped at the box office, and this is the reason why we don't make black superhero movies. That's what they want to do, passively make the black superhero movie, aggressively watch it fail, and then go back and say, no more black superhero movies. However, that didn't happen because we have a growing fantasy genre, a growing fantasy genre with a growing audience, a growing fantasy audience that's out here, again, looking and rabid for product in the fantasy genre. I see this at places like like the Black Comic Book Festival at the Schomburg. I see it at places like Anime NYC. Again, I went to those places maybe 6 years ago, and there was a rabid base, and that base continues to grow. But Hollywood wants to try to, again, squash this because in the media arm of white supremacy, they want us imagining a world that's white, and because they want us to imagine a world that's white, they try to sabotage everything from Netflix's Luke Cage to Black Panther to looking to, again, silence all the black voices that look to make fantasy stories like myself, again, and they can't seem to stop those voices from growing. And Sinners shows that there is a bankable audience there, the same bankable audience that was there in 1998 when Wesley Snipes basically revived the entire superhero movie genre with Blade. Wesley Snipes basically revived the entire genre of superhero movies with Blade and made an icon with that film. And people in Hollywood, they want us to, again, imagine a world of white people being the heroes in fantasy movies. They want us to imagine a world where only white people have that kind of power. But we're seeing with Sinners that there's a growing audience for black lead characters in fantasy films, and with there being a growing audience of black people looking to go to fantasy films, because according to reports, this film skewered very large black audiences to get that $60 million opening. Again, most of the audience, like Black Panther, was mostly black people going to see this film, and it shows that there is a, again, big black audience out there looking to go see these types of films, like fantasy films, sci-fi films, and superhero films. There's an audience for these movies, Unfortunately, there are those in Hollywood who don't want to produce these kind of films. No, they don't want to produce these kind of films because Hollywood is the media arm of white supremacy, and they don't want to give up any power to a black man because in order to make Sinners, they had to make concessions to Ryan Coogler, where he was going to be able to build wealth with this movie because after 25 years, Ryan Coogler owns this movie, similar to the way many people own their own property, like the late Fess Parker, who owned The Daniel Boone Show, and many other producers like Angela Bassett, who owns a cut of The 911 Show. That's where the real wealth is in these programs, because what you do is you're going to be able to make a profit on your film because you own the film. You didn't sell the film to the studio. You basically, what Ryan Coogler did was basically give them a license to the rights for 25 years and possibly made a deal where he was making that type of money, not only with the box office, possibly got a cut of the box office, possibly going to get a cut of the syndication on cable, get a cut of the streaming. And this is the thing that really peeves the people who run the media arm of white supremacy, is this black man taking economic power to take his own IP and again get wealth from that IP. Again, this is the thing that really upsets many of those in Hollywood because they know they took a L as related to the whole business practice of film. Ryan Coogler basically made a business deal where he's going to profit, and that's what's really got Hollywood upset. It's got Hollywood upset because not only do we see images of black people having power on the screen, but also power in front of the camera, and that's what's got many of those in white Hollywood upset, that you've got black people taking power, and that's one of the reasons why they wanted to go out here and actively look to sabotage the black fantasy market. They wanted to actively sabotage the black fantasy market because, one, you would be seeing images of black people made by black people that would show who we really were. So we were taking control not only of the images in front of the camera, but we were also controlling the narrative of that media, and we were also controlling the money as related to it, because as I've said before, those who control the money control the media, and those who control the money control the narrative. And in white supremacist Hollywood, they want to control the media with black people and control our narrative to have us following down dysfunctional roads, because they understand how influential that media is as related to our perception of self. That was shown when Bill Cosby created the show A Different World, and we saw black people going to college, and we started to see black people going and showing images of ourselves, working as ourselves. That's why they wanted to put us on the road to the hood. However, what really upsets many of those white racists in Hollywood is us imagining a world where we are front and center. That's really what upsets them, is seeing a world where we start to see ourselves as front and center, and us telling our stories about ourselves and showing a world where we imagine ourselves in a world where we have power and we have control. That's what Sinners represents to them, and that's why they wanted to go out here and look to minimize the success of this movie at the box office. They wanted to minimize the success of Sinners because these devils who run the media basically, again, want us looking at white people as gods and seeing the only images of black people out here being bumbling, stumbling idiots like Finn, who was played by John Boyega. They want to see those types of black people, or black people in the background of a white movie. They don't want us to see ourselves as front and center, because if we see ourselves as front and center, what that does is change our perception of self, to where we're focusing on seeing ourselves as powerful and seeing ourselves as taking power. That's what they don't want us to see. And what even more so, what they don't want us to see is a black creator being the one controlling things. Because if a black creator is controlling things, that means that you see a black person at front and center creating a world. And again, inspiring other young brothers and other young sisters to imagine a world where we are the ones who are controlling and telling our stories, telling the stories from our experience and our culture. That's what I do here at SJS Direct with stories in the SJS Direct universe. And again, they don't want to see people like me having that type of creative control. They don't want to see people like me having that type of power over our image. This is something I know from my own experience when I did the cover for John Haynes' Godbreaker, and I showed John Haynes holding Thor's hammer. That's the image they don't want out here. Again, a black man taking power, taking control, taking the lead, and again, being front and center. They fear this will inspire young brothers and young sisters to imagine themselves as being able to take power, and they fear that if you start to see these type of stories, you'll be thinking about empowering yourself. That's what they fear, and again, they wanted to downplay Sinners because Sinners represents a revolution in Hollywood, a revolution as related to the whole business arm of the media, because Sinners basically represents, again, not only do we have a black director going out here and telling a black story about vampires, a lore that was basically controlled by white people for years, that is a black man telling a vampire story. And we've got a black man not only making that type of film with a large budget, but showing that that type of film is bankable, and showing that there is a pattern of bankability with black fantasy films if they're done properly, and that there is a black audience interested in fantasy, something that many in the white media wanted to downplay, say, oh, there's no black audience for fantasy. No, I see that there's a large audience for fantasy. I see that there's a large audience for black science fiction. I see that there's a large audience for these type of stories, and Hollywood can't deny it, and it can't sabotage it anymore. No, it can't sabotage the fantasy market with its shill movies like A Wrinkle in Time or films like Captain America, Brave New World. They can't go out here and sabotage the genre. No, people will go out and see an authentic black fantasy or black horror movie that are out here, and possibly would go out here and pick up and go out here and go see adaptations of stories like I write, like Eternal Night, which is a black vampire movie, a vampire book set in Harlem, and The Temptation of John Haynes, which is a supernatural story set right here in New York. And both of them, again, revolve around black culture and show the black side and black experience as related to these story elements, and show that, again, the success of Sinners shows us that there's an audience ready to go see these type of stories. Again, 60-some% of the audience was mostly black. And again, this is the type of film you think Hollywood would be going to embrace now that it's in a, again, seriously downward spiral. But because these racists don't want to see a black person having that type of power behind the camera, or see black images that empower black people, what they want to do is, again, sabotage this genre. And again, that's what the Variety headline was all about. Again, looking to downplay this movie. Again, a movie that had an extremely strong opening, an opening better than many of their other movies that have come out this year. I mean, most of the movies outside of Minecraft have flopped at the box office, and Hollywood had its worst week in its history in March a couple months ago. And here we have a film that's desperately needed, an original story that's, again, original concept, but Hollywood doesn't want to embrace that concept. No, it wants to continue going on in its way, again, looking to downplay Sinners, showing us the devils behind the camera who are part of the media arm of white supremacy, who don't want to see creators like myself be able to gain opportunities, because they want to control the image of black people. They want to control the narrative of black people, and the only images they want to see of us are like the images that are in those minstrel show Tyler Perry movies. Those are the only stories they want to see regarding us. And Even though Hollywood is again on the brink of collapse, they'd rather let it fall than rather see images of black people taking power. That's the saddest part of things. That's the saddest part of things as related to this whole Sinners situation. Here you have a black film that again is extremely successful and could lead to the business staying alive, but they would rather let that business fall rather than give a black person power or let black fantasy again grow as a genre. Black fantasy is a growing genre, a huge hit as related to things, and they don't want to see black fantasy grow, even though I'm seeing black fantasy grow all around me. I'm seeing black fantasy films, not fantasy films, black fantasy books and black fantasy comics, again, being in a place of growth, but Hollywood doesn't want that to grow, and it shows how racist Hollywood is and how the media arm of white supremacy is so anti-black. I mean, they're so anti-black, they sabotaged the Star Wars sequel trilogy by turning Finn into a janitor and turning him into a bumbling, stumbling idiot. They basically, again, didn't capitalize on the success of Black Panther by looking for creators like myself to go out here and adapt more stories, or look for other black filmmakers like Kevin Grevioux to make films, or find other people who could make films like Sally Richardson Whitfield. Go find those black filmmakers. No, instead of looking to give black people power, they look to take black people's power away. And as they look to take black people's power away, they're showing everyone who the real racists are. And again, this is blue leftist Hollywood that's showing how anti-black it is, because instead of celebrating the success of Ryan Coogler's Sinners, these devils want to downplay that success, because they don't want to see black people taking power and possibly black people bailing Hollywood out once more, because it was blaxploitation films that basically saved Hollywood in the 1970s. It was blaxploitation films that basically kept Hollywood from going bankrupt. And instead of going out here and looking to go out and support that growing black audience, this time these leftists basically want to deny the black audience and deny the power of the black audience, because the only films they want to see are minstrel shows like Tyler Perry movies, but don't want to usher in a new golden age of black cinema, because that's what happened as related to the blaxploitation movies. It ushered in that golden age thanks to Bill Cosby, and what they fear is that if this new golden age comes, we will see intelligent black people, balanced images of black people, and an entire new generation will be inspired, like those viewers of A Different World were, to go to college, to go and improve themselves, because the only black people they want in film are gangsters, thugs, and hood rats, and again, don't want us to see ourselves as we really are. That's what they don't want us to see, is who we really are, and have our stories out there. No, what they want to do is go out here and keep us in a place of oppression, because like I talk about in my novel Spellbound, they want to fit you into a black box that's acceptable to white people, want to fit you in that black box so that you can be the stereotypes that they feel comfortable with. And what makes them uncomfortable is that we're imagining ourselves out of that box and showing that we can tell stories about ourselves, that show how rich and diverse we are as a people and as a culture. That's what really scares many of those in Hollywood, that these films are becoming hits, and again, becoming hits and showing that no matter what they try to do, they can't stifle the black image, and they can't stifle us from taking control and power over our image and taking control over our narrative. Now, if you want to check out much of the black fantasy I write on the SJS Direct imprint, in the SJS Direct universe, you can pick up those books in the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, and novels like The Temptation of John Haynes that starts the entire SJS Direct universe. And you can also find books that show diverse pictures of life, like the Black Goth Spinsterella series, or you can check out my vampire novel Eternal Night, or you can check out my black sorority novel The Thetas. All of those books are available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. They're also available at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to check out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, that comic is available on Lulu.com right now. You can get a full paperback copy for the same price as the 2022 Kickstarter. And if you want to see me make more videos talking about the black fantasy, black science fiction, and everything that goes on in that whole genre, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, PayPal, or Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And I use that money to go out here and be able to do things like stay on the air by paying for the internet. And I also use it to go out here and pay black artists to be able to design great covers for many SJS Direct books like the John Haynes series and the recent Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer, trying to keep money in the community and keep many of our artists continuing to be paid and get their material out there for others to see. And that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this all-new Spinsterella story. Pre-order your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA, from the Black Boule, in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.